Emotions are a fundamental part of what makes us human. They are like the colors of a painting, giving richness and meaning to the canvas of our lives. Think about the last time you laughed with a friend, or felt the warmth of a hug from a loved one. These feelings of joy and connection guide our actions and help us understand the world around us. They are not just random sensations, they are powerful signals that tell us what is important, what to move toward, and what to avoid. Without emotions, our existence would lose its depth and vibrancy, leaving us with a life that is merely a series of events without any personal significance or meaning attached to them. Imagine waking up and feeling nothing. The beautiful sunrise outside your window would not inspire awe, just as the thought of a difficult day ahead would not cause any anxiety. Emotions are our internal compass. Fear warns us of danger, prompting us to be careful when crossing a busy street. Sadness signals loss, allowing us to process grief and seek comfort from others. Even anger, often seen as a negative emotion, can motivate us to stand up against injustice. These feelings are essential tools for survival and social bonding, honed over millions of years of evolution to help us navigate the complexities of life and build strong, supportive communities with those around us. The importance of emotions extends deep into our biology and psychology. They influence our memories, making certain moments stand out with vivid clarity simply because of the feelings attached to them. A first kiss, a graduation day, or the loss of a pet are etched into our minds not just as facts, but as experiences saturated with emotional content. This emotional tagging helps us learn from our past and make better choices for our future. It allows us to empathize with others, to feel their happiness and their pain as if it were our own. This shared emotional landscape is the very foundation of compassion, kindness, and our ability to form meaningful, lasting relationships with one another. Without this inner world of feelings, our perception of reality would be fundamentally altered. Music would become just a sequence of sounds, no longer capable of stirring our souls or making us want to dance. Art would be reduced to mere shapes and colors on a canvas, devoid of the power to move or inspire us. Stories would be simple collections of words, their characters and plots unable to evoke empathy or excitement. The very essence of human culture, which is built upon the expression and sharing of our deepest feelings, would crumble. We would be like robots, processing information efficiently, but unable to appreciate the beauty, tragedy, and wonder of the world we inhabit. In a world devoid of emotions, the rhythm of daily life would be unrecognizably different. The morning routine would become a purely mechanical process. You would wake up not because you feel rested or because you are excited for the day, but because your internal clock dictates it is time to begin your scheduled activities. Breakfast would not be enjoyable, it would simply be fuel intake, chosen for its nutritional value rather than its taste. Conversations with family members over the table would be transactional, limited to exchanging necessary information about schedules and tasks for the day. There would be no morning hugs, no shared laughter over a silly joke, and no comforting words for someone who seems down. The workplace and school environments would transform into centers of pure productivity and information transfer. At work, colleagues would not collaborate out of a sense of team spirit or shared passion for a project. Instead, they would work together based on logical assessments of each other's skills and efficiency. There would be no office friendships, no celebrating a coworker's success, and no offering support after a professional setback. Similarly, in a classroom, students would absorb information without any curiosity or passion for learning. A history lesson about a great victory or a terrible tragedy would be received with the same indifference as a mathematical formula, just another piece of data to be memorized and recited. Relationships as we know them would cease to exist. Romantic love, the most powerful of human emotions, would be an alien concept. People might form partnerships based on practical benefits, such as shared resources or logistical convenience, but the deep bond of affection and intimacy would be absent. A marriage would resemble a business contract more than a union of two souls. Friendships would also dissolve, as the emotional glue of trust, loyalty, and shared joy that holds them together would be gone. We would interact with others, but we would never truly connect with them on a meaningful level, living as isolated individuals in a crowded world. Even our leisure time would be empty and sterile. Hobbies and entertainment are pursued because they bring us joy, excitement, or a sense of accomplishment. Without these feelings, there would be no logical reason to paint a picture, play a sport, or listen to music. Perhaps people would engage in activities that maintain physical health, like exercise, but it would be a chore done out of pure logic, not for the rush of endorphins or the fun of the game. Our free time would likely be filled with tasks aimed at optimizing our existence, like organizing our living spaces or learning new, practical skills. But the simple pleasure of doing something just because you love it would be entirely lost. In a society without emotions, every decision, from the personal to the political, would be made through cold, hard logic. When choosing a life partner, a person would not fall in love. Instead, they would likely use a detailed algorithm, analyzing potential candidates based on genetic compatibility, financial stability, shared practical goals, and social standing. The choice would be strategic, designed to produce the most optimal outcome for survival and resource accumulation. There would be no room for chemistry or that unexplainable spark. Relationships would be formed with the same detached calculation one might use when purchasing a new appliance, focusing solely on function and reliability over any sense of connection. Interactions between people would become incredibly direct and, to our current sensibilities, brutally honest. Without feelings like embarrassment, pride, or fear of hurting someone's feelings, communication would be stripped of all social niceties. If your work was not up to standard, your manager would tell you directly that it was inefficient and needed to be corrected, without any attempt to soften the blow. If someone found your presence unnecessary for a task, they would simply ask you to leave. This might lead to a more efficient society in some ways, as misunderstandings would be reduced, but it would also create a harsh and unforgiving social environment where politeness and kindness are seen as illogical and inefficient behaviors. Moral and ethical dilemmas would be resolved not by empathy or compassion, but by a utilitarian calculus. For example, if a difficult decision had to be made in a hospital with limited resources, doctors would not struggle with the emotional weight of their choice. They would simply allocate the resources to the patient with the highest statistical probability of long-term survival and future societal contribution. The concept of every life having inherent, equal value might be replaced by a system that quantifies a person's worth based on their utility. This logical approach would remove prejudice based on feeling, but it would also eliminate the compassion that drives us to protect the vulnerable and help those in need. On a larger scale, governments and leaders would rule based on pure data analysis. Laws would be created to maximize order and productivity for the greatest number of people without regard for individual happiness or suffering. A policy that displaced a small community for the construction of a highly efficient factory would be approved without hesitation if the data showed a net benefit to the state's economy. There would be no public outcry driven by empathy for the displaced families. Justice systems would be purely retributive and deterrent-based, with punishments calculated to prevent future crimes, lacking any concept of rehabilitation born from a belief in second chances or human potential for change. Ultimately, a world without emotions would be a profoundly worse place to live. While it might seem appealing to eliminate negative feelings like pain, anger, and sadness, doing so would come at the cost of losing all the positive ones as well. Life would lose its purpose and motivation. Why would anyone strive to achieve greatness, create art, or explore the unknown if not for the thrill of discovery, the pride of accomplishment, or the passion for a subject? Our greatest achievements are not born from logic alone. They are fueled by the emotional fire of ambition, curiosity, and the desire to make a difference. Without that fire, human progress would stagnate into a monotonous cycle of survival and optimization. The very fabric of society, which is woven with threads of empathy, trust, and mutual care, would unravel. We help an elderly person cross the street not because of a logical calculation, but because of an empathetic impulse. We build families and communities based on love and a sense of belonging. In a world of pure reason, these selfless acts would be seen as irrational. Each person would become an island, interacting with others only when it was mutually beneficial. This would lead to a deeply lonely and isolated existence, where the comfort of a friend's support or the warmth of a family's love is an unknown concept. Life would be efficient, but it would also be empty. The absence of emotion would strip away the very qualities that define our humanity. Courage is not the absence of fear, but acting in spite of it. Compassion is not a logical deduction, but the ability to feel another's suffering. Hope is not a statistical probability, but an emotional belief in a better future, even against the odds. These virtues, which we admire and aspire to, would have no meaning in an emotionless world. We would become highly intelligent biological machines, capable of complex problem solving, but incapable of kindness, bravery, or love. The human spirit, with all its beautiful and chaotic contradictions, would be extinguished, leaving behind a cold and silent void. In conclusion, while emotions can be messy and painful, they are inextricably linked to everything that gives life meaning. They are the source of our connections, our creativity, our morality, and our will to live. A life guided only by logic would be a bleak and sterile existence, a gray world lacking the vibrant colors of joy, the deep shadows of sorrow, and the brilliant light of love. It would be a world where we exist but do not truly live. The challenges and heartaches that come with our feelings are a small price to pay for the incredible richness and profound beauty they bring to the human experience.